Welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of music that moves our hearts and gets our feet tapping. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We appreciate you for listening. Share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. The podcast is hosted by 12 Kyle. Next up, the Rap Soul Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. If you found this podcast because someone sent it to you and they told you it was dope, thank you and welcome. If you found this podcast just randomly surfing the internet, thank you and welcome. If you found this podcast because someone wrote it on the side of a bus, thank you and welcome. I am your host, 12 Kyle. And again, this is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the intersection of rap and soul music, as well as hip hop and R&B music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. This is the best music podcast that you've never heard until right now. And I thank you for showing up. On this episode, what I want to talk about is top 5. My personal top 5, but there's a twist to the top 5. So today I was just chilling, minding my own black-owned business, and my homegirl Autumn the Aries, shout out to Autumn, hit me up on the Twitter X. And maybe you don't know, but Autumn has a dope podcast called the Lit Life Podcast. I've been on there. She's been on my podcast, the 12 Kyle podcast, my other podcast, I should say. And she's definitely going to be on this podcast as well. But Autumn hit me up and she tagged me on a tweet. And I want to make sure I get the information correctly. The tweet was from DJ Tistic. Oh, excuse me, DJ Artistic. I don't want to mess his name up. Shout out to DJ Artistic. We now follow each other on Twitter. And he came with a task. And he said, it says, and I quote, question to all rap fans. So that would be me. That's going to be you. Name your top 5 rappers based purely on skill, lyricism, flow, delivery, punchlines, storytelling, etc., etc. Then here's the twist. Now, name your top 5 in terms of their albums, singles, and consistency. How many artists made both of your lists? So what we're doing here is 2 different top 5s, really. So you're going to come up with your top 5 just based on how dope they are. Their skill, their lyricism, not how many albums they sold, their flow, their delivery, punchlines, storytelling, etc., etc. And then you got to come back and name your top 5 in terms of albums, singles, and their consistency. So those are 2 different things that we're asking here. And I got to shout out DJ Artistic because that's pretty clever. So without further ado, let's get to it. And I have mine in order. Coming in, let me just give you my top 5 based purely on skill, lyricism, flow, delivery, punchline, storytelling, the whole 9. Coming in at number 5, the late, great, notorious B.I.G., aka Biggie Smalls, Christopher Wallace. Biggie was the guy. Biggie, I think, has a small body of work through no fault of his own. But there are a lot of people who would put Biggie in their top 5 under these particular categories. He comes in at 5 for me because I think he embodies all of that. His storytelling, punchlines, his delivery, and his flow are impeccable. The man won Lyricist of the Year at the Source Awards. So, I mean, like, that goes without saying as far as what kind of skill the brother had. And not only that, but I was a fan. and still am a fan. I still listen to his music even though he's no longer with us. As someone who was around when Biggie was in his quote unquote prime, those couple of years, man, Biggie ran the charts. But we're not talking about charts here, but his skill set and his skill level was unmatched. And I'll be lying if I said that I didn't miss him, because I do. And I think most of his fans do as well. Gone way, way too soon. But yeah, the Notorious B.I.G. comes at number 5 for me. Coming in at number 4 of my top 5, based purely on skill, lyricism, flow, delivery, punchline, storytelling, etc. My number 4, Jay-Z, aka Sean Corey Carter. Jay-Z definitely gets on the top 5. I would be lying if I said that Jay-Z probably was higher than 4 in years past. He wasn't at 1, but he was close to it. And I'm sure that there's probably going to be quite a few of you who may have him at 1, or at least higher than 4. And that's fine. And it's no knock, because I mean, if you got 5,000 rappers and you say that this guy's ranked number 4, I don't think that's a slight at any count. But yeah, Jay-Z, man, is impeccable. His lyricism and his flow, the double and triple entendres, really, especially early in his career, I think really is what drew me to Jay-Z. As an MC, I think he's one of the best to ever have done it. I'll be honest, as a fan, I get frustrated when I hear some stuff that he's done in the last few years, because I think he can be better. But then there's the side of it where people say, well, what else does Hov have to rap about? To me, it's plenty of things he can rap about, but Jay-Z doesn't have to, blow you away with his rhymes. He's just that good to where he can roll out of bed and give you, a dope 16 bars, and he don't even have to really be in shape to do that. But that being said, I'm putting Jay-Z at number 4. Number 3, from the Boogie Down Bronx, knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone. That's right, KRS-One is my number 3. When you talk about lyricism and flow and delivery, I don't know that there's anybody that has a better delivery, maybe outside of Chuck D from Public Enemy, in as far as a hip hop voice, than KRS-One. I mean, he is the epitome of an MC's MC. Even down to the way that he enunciates his words. And I remember Chris Rock, the famous comedian, telling this joke about KRS-One, and he said he had a dream, and I can't remember how the rest of the joke went, but he said in the dream, KRS-One kept saying, "My raps will destroy you." I couldn't get past that. My raps will destroy you. And I mean, KRS-One has a very distinct voice, but yeah, his delivery, punchlines, not so much. Well, actually, he's got strong punchlines, but his storytelling, and he's done it like this since the first days that he broke onto the scene in the mid 80s with BDP. So yeah, I'm definitely going KRS-One at number 3. Number 2, coming out of Queens, more specifically Queensbridge, Nasty Nas, aka Nasir Jones. Nas definitely comes in at 2. Flow, lyricism, delivery, a lyrical wizard, if you will. I personally think that Nas's Illmatic is one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. And I think that it's mind-boggling to me that he wrote most of that when he was like 18, 19 years old. And it's even more mind-boggling because I'm only like 9 months older than Nas. But yeah, this guy's incredible. Even to this day, Nas still delivers lyrically where you would think that someone his age probably shouldn't be. Nas is there and he's surpassed everybody. One of my favorite MCs, period, point blank. Love the guy. I love almost everything he's done. Not everything, but I love almost all of his albums. But we're not talking about albums, but solely on his skill set. Nas is he's the guy. I mean, like, and he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. He still has it, and he delivers it anytime he steps in the booth, and I think that's very impressive. So we counting down my top 5 based on lyricism, skill, flow, delivery, punchline, storytelling. At number 5, I had Biggie. At number 4, I had Jay-Z. At number 3, KRS-One. Number 2, Nas. And number 1, the God MC, Rakim Allah. Yeah, man. I think if you look at hip hop's tree of MCs, Rakim is at the top. And I think his lyricism birthed MCs like Nas and Jay-Z. I think they influenced guys like KRS-One and definitely birthed a guy like Biggie. If you don't have Rakim, I'll be honest, there's no telling where hip hop would be, because he brought in lyricism, or he helped usher in the era of lyricism and being dynamic on the microphone. Rakim's lyrics, I think now, even more so now that I'm older, there are times where, I'll be, and I've heard his stuff for over 30 years, and I still catch something and I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? Like, I remember being live on a podcast, and when he said, turn up the bass, hand out my microphone, turn up the bass, check out my melody, hand out a microphone, I'm letting knowledge be born, and my name's the R. No, I messed that up. My bad. What am I thinking about? Turn up the bass, check out my melody, hand out a cigar. I'm letting knowledge be born, and my name's the R. Let me back up. Turn up the bass, check out my melody, hand out a cigar. I'm letting knowledge be born, and my name's the R. You handed out cigars back in the days when babies were born. And like, it wasn't until that moment in that podcast where I actually caught it. It was me and the homie Eclectic. Shout out to E. It just like dawned on me in the middle of and I had heard that song 1,000 times. The song is called My Melody from the groundbreaking album Paid in Full. And I couldn't believe it. Like, just even little small things like that. And that's the beauty of lyricism, when you hear things 15 years later and it's still 20 years later or 30 years later and they resonate and they mean something different. So Rakim is definitely in my top 5. He's my number 1. So that being said, top 5 based on purely on skill, lyricism, punchline, delivery, storytelling, the whole 9. Number 5, Biggie. Number 4, Jay-Z. Number 3, KRS-One. Number 2, Nas. And number 1, Rakim. And now we're going to take a commercial break. And on the other side of the break, I will give you my other top 5. So sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. And just like that, we are back. Once again, thank you for checking out the latest edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle, and we're talking about the top 5. So before the break, I gave you my top 5 rappers purely based on their pure skill. Their lyricism, their flow, delivery, punchlines, storytelling, etc. Now, this is where DJ Artistic had us flip it. Now you have to name your top 5 in terms of albums, in terms of singles, and in terms of consistency. So, with that said, let's get it started. Coming in at number 5, Ladies Love Cool James. That's right, LL Cool J. You could make a case, and I'm not mad at anybody who makes this case. You could make a case that he could be number 1. The self-proclaimed GOAT has been consistent, and he's done it for so many years. I mean, like, it's not even funny. And at the time of this recording, he's released an album this year in 2024, and it's a smash. And it's wild to think that he went away for so long from the music, and he came back and he's still dope. And almost as dope as he was back in 85, 86. But his albums, I think from, Bigger and Deffer to Mama Said Knock You Out to the Mr. Smith album, he delivered. Now, I think he had a couple of duds in there, but, that happens. And I think, for me personally, I think that's probably why I couldn't put him higher than 5. But I'm not going to argue with someone who does. But yeah, based on albums, singles, and again, his consistency on a microphone. LL is dope, man. And he's one of the best, simply put. Coming in at number 4. Shout out to H-Town, Houston's own, Scarface. Scarface is my guy. I go back to Scarface, man. I remember hearing Mr. Scarface for the first time. And it was different because, like, the dude was from the South and there weren't a lot of Southern rappers at the time. And he was dope. And his storytelling was crazy. You go back to some of those old Ghetto Boys albums. Listen, storytelling was crazy. But again, it ain't even about that in this particular category. We're talking about singles and albums and his level of consistency. And Scarface has delivered on all of those. And I think one of the things that I love about his albums is that they're different themes and they represent in a lot of ways where he was in his life. If you think about, an album like The Diary, which, I think this year is 30 years old. He was in a dark place in his life, but that spawned some great music. And when you listen to it now, it sounds just as dope or just as fresh as it did 30 years ago. And I think that speaks volumes about that. And Scarface has always been consistent when it comes to singles. And, earlier this year, he rocked the Tiny Desk series. And that was crazy. And that really reinvigorated people and reminded people of just how dope Scarface is. He's always been consistent. Always. So yeah, I got Face at number 4. Number 3, a guy who has not been out as long as some of the other MCs that I'm going to mention, but his albums, his singles, and his consistency has been A1 from the first album, and that is Compton's own, K. Dot, aka Kendrick Lamar. Listen, Kendrick Lamar is one of the best MCs, period. Kendrick Lamar is one of the most consistent MCs, period. Kendrick Lamar has not disappointed me in anything that he's put out thus far. There's been some things that I didn't like as much as I like the others, but from starting off at Section 80 to Good Kid, Mad City to Pimp a Butterfly to Damn to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I didn't like Damn as much as everybody else did, but it was a dope album. But those first three, and you guys know if you've been watching and listening to this podcast, had the homie Beezy 430 on, and Beezy and I talked about, Kendrick's championship run. If you have not heard that podcast, go back and listen. It's like the second episode that I did. It's called a three-peat, Kendrick Lamar. But yeah, Kendrick's been the model of consistency. He doesn't have to come out every year, but he's done it. He's done it. I couldn't think of it. And here's the thing. He's at he's at 3 now. When it's all said and done, he could be at 1 if he keeps on this run. I'll be just that honest with you. He's been that dope. Coming in at number 2, Marcy Project's own Sean Corey Carter, again Jay-Z. Yeah, Jay-Z definitely is going to be on here. Some would make the case that Jay should be 1. If you have him at 1, I'm not going to argue. I mean, he's told you how many summers he held you down. Jay-Z at one point in time in his career was putting out an album, I think every year or every 18 months or so. And when he wasn't doing that, he was on singles and soundtracks and everything. And he always delivered. Now, I will say this much. I think the quality of his albums fell off after American Gangster. Jay hasn't produced an album that I liked since American Gangster, but he's been consistent. It's just, I haven't gotten into him. But if you look at Jay-Z's discography from Reasonable Doubt to American Gangster, ain't nobody touching it. I mean, that run of albums I think is incredible. No duds. I mean, a lot of people don't like Volume 1. I love that album. Sans 3 songs, but other than those 3 songs, I think it's phenomenal. But yeah, you can make the case that Jay-Z could be at 1. If you said he's at 1, I'm cool with that. I'm not even going to argue with you. But I would love to hear your thoughts on where you would have Jay-Z and his albums and singles and consistency. Coming in at number 1. Again, Nas. Yeah, man, I got Nas at 1. I got Nas at 1 because he's made some incredible albums. He's made some banging singles. And I think particularly when you think about this run that he's had probably the last 4 or 5 years, this run that he's had working with Hit Boy, producer extraordinaire, nobody's touching him. Jay-Z can't go get a Hit Boy or Premier or anybody for that matter and crank out 6 dope albums as Nas did, with one producer. I think it was 6, 5, or it's either 5 or 6. I can't remember. But yeah, the King's Disease series I think put Nas over the top as far as consistency, and I think if Nas goes into the studio and makes another album tomorrow, I think it's gonna be dope because I think that he's catching his second wind. And I mean, like, he had a little run there where things were kind of shaky. I mean, we remember Nostradamus. But the flip side of that is, I think, and I mentioned this on a previous podcast, I think the diss from Jay-Z, Takeover, woke him up, and he ain't been the same since. He's been better than he was before. So I got to give it to Nas. So just to recap, my top 5 in terms of albums, singles, and consistency. Number 5, LL Cool J. Number 4, Mr. Scarface. Number 3, K-Dot, aka Kendrick Lamar. Number 2, Jay-Z. And number 1, Nas. Yeah, man. So in conclusion, I think I gotta thank DJ Artistic for tweeting this, and I gotta thank Autumn the Aries for even mentioning it and tagging me on it, because I didn't see it. And as soon as she tagged me, I looked at it. I said, "Oh, that's this week's podcast." So I had to come in and do it today, jump in the booth and knock it out. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and I don't necessarily know that there are any wrong answers. I would love to hear your feedback on this. So hit me up. That is going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out the Rap Soul podcast. Do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Subscribe, and subscribe. Also, share this podcast with anybody else who you think that are music fans. We want to get the word out. We want people to know what we got cooking over here. And like I said, it's the intersection of rap music, soul music, hip hop, and R&B from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. This, I will say this again, this is the best music podcast that you've never heard. But actually, you just heard it. So now you know. This is the best music podcast in the space that we're in. You can listen to this podcast on all streaming platforms. Wherever you heard this podcast, that's where you can find it, and subscribe. We also have a YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe there, share it with your friends. Also, keep in mind on the YouTube page, we have both audio and video. So if you want to look at it, or if you want to listen to it, you can do both. And also follow me on social media, Rap Soul Podcast across the board. On Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. We're everywhere. As I mentioned a little earlier, we do have a place where you can continue the conversation. Go to our Reddit page. The Rap Soul Podcast is there, and continue the discussion there. And last but not least, if you'd like to financially contribute to the podcast, you can hit us up on Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. Again, that's going to do it for me. Again, shout out to DJ Artistic. Shout out to the homie, Autumn the Aries. Appreciate you, Autumn, as always, for coming through and blessing me with a topic that I wasn't even looking for. But as always, again, Autumn, I appreciate you. That's going to do it for me. I will catch you guys next time. 5,000.
Thank you for listening. This concludes the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the podcast on social media. And feel free to continue this discussion on our Reddit page. More importantly, share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. Until next time, 5,000.